Good afternoon once again. We'll be joined in just a moment by Villanova head coach Jay Wright. And in about 10 minutes, we'll also be joined by student athletes Jalen Brunson, Phil Booth, and Mikkel Bridges. Just a reminder, while joining us here in the main interview room, please silence your cell phone. Please refrain from the use of any flash photography. Also, please refrain from any video recording devices. That includes handheld cameras, mini cameras, and mobile phone cameras. No social media streaming is permitted during the press conferences here in the main interview room. You are allowed to take photos with your phone, however. If you need the satellite information, please see Ron from Hammond Communications. He has it at the ready and can't wait to deliver it to you. We have 4 microphone attendants joining us this afternoon. If you have a question for Coach Wright or any of the student athletes when they join us, please raise your hand. We'll send a microphone in your direction. State your name and media outlet, and then your question. Coach Wright is next in just a moment. Okay. Is it a double chin photo? What's that? Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I'm doing well. I saw some tweets on the Twitter this afternoon. I think there was some confusion about the schedule for student athlete and other availabilities today. If anyone ever has a question about the schedule of news conferences, feel free to ask. I have it. I also have a green highlighter if anyone needs to borrow it. Are the green highlighters in the back? Yeah, it's in this Final Four media guide. The schedule's in there. Obviously, on game day, it's a little bit different, but on days like today, you may feel, like you need a roadmap or a little bit of assistance. All of us are here to help with that. There were some tweets with some clear confusion about the sequence and the scheduling. As someone that needs to go to everything, I can tell you that I can only be in one place at once, so I'm working on the rest. Do you use? I know I don't use one, but like the steppers or the apps with the count steps are really popular, or whatever. But you put some miles in. Whatever coach wants to do. Poor coach has been up here 20 times in the last 2 days. So. Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. If you got to pick, you know, this and early start to golf season. We're joined right now by Villanova head coach Jay Wright. This is his 11th time on the dais in the last 2 days. Coach, how's the team? How's everything going? And then we'll get to questions.
Good. Everything's going well. Just a great place for a Final Four. We're on the Riverwalk. Guys are staying focused. We've got a great Villanova crowd down here, and looking forward to our open practice here. Get one more time on the court, and know we got a great Kansas team to play.
Let's start on the right. Wendell.
Jay, Wendell Barnhouse with the Open Man. Not to compare this team to the team 2 years ago, but do you see threads and maybe, for lack of a better term, a DNA, so to speak? And could you describe what you think that is, if that's true?
Definitely threads. To get this far, all the teams that are here, you have a laser focus. You have an ability to prepare for different opponents. If you don't, someone's going to catch you along the way. And it really has to be at a high level. And we've had some really good teams, and sometimes you just can't get to that level at this time of year. And this group reminds me of our group in 16 in that way. And I feel like we're getting better as the season goes on, even at this time of year. And that's something that's similar to our team in 16.
3 questions on the left side. Coach, we'll start with Joe.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer. Jay, Bill Self had something interesting to say about Devontae Graham and Jalen Brunson. He said, I hope they're matched up against each other quite a bit because I think it'll be fun for people to see that and certainly fun to coach it. What are your thoughts about, do you agree, disagree, or how do you feel?
You know what, I really try not to think about those types of things. And I don't really think I would enjoy any matchup against Devontae Graham. Really would have fun with it. I would enjoy the challenge. It would be he is a difficult matchup, and you can put a smaller guy on him like Jalen, but I think he's got the ability to shoot over someone close to his size, and you put a bigger guy on him, he's got the quickness to go by him. So I wouldn't say I would look at it exactly like Bill.
Coach, we'll stay in that same area.
Mike Jensen, Philadelphia Inquirer. Jay, when Dante first gets in the game, 16:46 left, 16:14 left. I mean, in this tournament so far, he's gone in for Booth twice, Pascal once, Spellman once. I'm just curious if you've already pre-decided who he's going in for, or whether those first 4 minutes are deciding.
No, I think you nailed it. It just depends on what's going on. I know we want to get him in there, and quickly, and it just depends what's going on. Sometimes we want to play smaller. Sometimes, Omari as a freshman might be confused on pick and roll coverage. Sometimes Phil Booth might, be at the top of our press and get tired. It's always something different, but we're almost looking for that. That need to get our rotation going. Not only does he bring energy, but he starts to get our rotation going where we get somebody out, we get them rested, and that guy's usually coming right back in so we can keep fresh bodies in there.
A little further back, Dana.
Dana O'Neill at The Athletic. Talking to Omari, I think he thought things would come a little more quickly and easily since he sat out the last year and had a familiarity, but it took a little while. How important was his evolution to what you're doing right now?
Probably individually the most important part of our growth as a team. Everybody else on our team is pretty experienced. And to get this far, you've got to have a good big man. We've always had good perimeter players, but, in 16, I thought Daniel Chefu was playing like the best forward in college basketball when we were in the tournament. And Omari has approached that level. I don't think he's at the level Daniel was yet, but if not for him and his development, we probably wouldn't be be at this point. You know, other guys are they've each improved, but not at the rate that Omari has. He's probably had the biggest impact.
Coach, we're going to move over to the right, toward the front, Aaron, and then Hoops after Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron Beard with the AP. Obviously, the three-point shot's been a big factor for your success, but all the teams here can shoot it. They make it at a pretty high rate. They make more than in past years. I'm curious, do you look at this and just say it's only going to get bigger from here, from this weekend, and then in years coming, or is this, I mean, is it just the evolution of the game and mimicking NBA styles? I mean, where do you come down on that?
I think you hit three of them. I think the NBA style, you know, in college, we all watch the NBA. We all learn from those guys. They're the best players and coaches. And then I think the rules of the two rules, obviously the three-point line, but the freedom of movement, the emphasis on freedom of movement, lack of physicality is making that the evolution of the game. Skill, perimeter shooting, and that's why I think this is going to continue to be a big part of the game. And then in college, we all look and see who gets to the Final Four and what they're doing. You know, and we a lot of us emulate that.
Hoops.
Hey, Coach.
Hoops is in the house. The tradition continues. I hope I get to say that for a while.
We were talking about Jalen's maturity last week and the matchups that he had with Sexton and Carter and Evans and how it didn't seem to affect him and how he didn't concentrate him. Is he going to take the same approach this week, do you think, with Graham?
Yeah, I really hope so. And that was my answer to the earlier question. You know, we just don't play that way. We play individual matchups, and it's tempting when everyone's talking to you about the matchup. When you're the player they're talking about, it's just tempting for it to get in your head. And I don't think he's let it. But each step here, I think Devontae's, all these guys are great. If you just take a little bit, if you add a little bit to each one of them, Devontae's probably the best of all of them. And so I know Jalen loves a challenge. I think part of his challenge is not getting caught up in it, and I really hope he doesn't.
We're going to invite the student athletes to join us, and we're going to move to CL on the left side.
JCL Brown with the Fieldhouse. Larry Brown just said that you saved his life when you allowed him to come to practices back around, I guess it was 2011. How would you characterize his influence on you?
I've learned a great deal from him about the game of basketball. You know, I worked under some great coaches. Coach Massimino, I learned everything from. But having Coach Brown around us for a number of years, even when he was the coach of the 76ers, when he would have a day off, he would come to our practices with his staff, which blew my mind. But his love of X's and O's and the game is far beyond mine. He would watch what we were doing. He could watch one practice and learn everything we were trying to do, and then come up with a suggestion for what we were trying to do. And he'd probably give me 10 suggestions, and I would use one, just because they were all so good. But I just couldn't incorporate everything. And he really taught, I think helped us offensively a lot over his years with us. And a lot of the drills, a lot of the things we do offensively came from him spending time with us.
We'll go to the right side. We'd also like to welcome Jalen Brunson, Phil Booth, and Mikkel Bridges. We'll take questions for coach or student athletes. Wendell on the right.
Jay, Wendell Barnhouse from the Open Man again. You said the team you feel like it's continuing to improve. How much of that is on the defensive end and during the season, because the team was so efficient offensively, how often was it kind of a struggle to get them to make sure they dial in on the defense every game, even if they're up 20?
Yeah, no matter how many years you're in coaching, you continue to learn. You learn from your players. This group taught me to never give in on the ability to improve defensively. They were so efficient offensively, and they picked up so many things we were teaching offensively that I thought it might be really tough to get them to be a good defensive team. I almost thought, all right, we've never had a team this good offensively, so you just can't get them to be good defensively. But they stuck with it, and they're becoming one of our best defensive teams, which I never would have thought midway through the season. But these guys taught me a lot, and I'm really proud of their commitment.
On the left side.
Mike Sealski from the Philadelphia Inquirer for Jay. Given your opponents in the Sweet 16 in the Elite Eight and the defense, you okay?
Sorry. I am.
And the defense that West Virginia and Texas Tech played, do you have to, I would imagine it was an adjustment to get ready for each of them. Do you now have to, how much adjustment do you have to do again to what figures to be a much more open style of play?
It is. It's amazing. The physicality of West Virginia and Texas Tech was on another level. Providence and Seton Hall are like that in our league, but they were on a little bit another level, strength-wise and in terms of using their physicality. And now this Kansas team is a little bit like Creighton in our league and Butler and Marquette, the way they use threes, but just on another level. So in each of those games, we kind of had to take a little punch in the mouth to start the game just to get a feel for it and adjust. And I think we're going to have to do the same thing in this game. Their speed in transition, but also the speed with which they run their half-court offense is the best that we have faced.
On the right side.
Hi, Coach. Hi, guys. Casey McDonald here for the Teamcast, so get to be the homer with you. This is, I say this with a heavy heart. It's our first time and your first time on this stage without Coach Massimino. So during this time, is there, and this is for Jay, any of you can answer, is there maybe a piece of advice that he gave you from over the years or a memory or a moment that really pops into your mind?
Let's start down the end with Mikkel.
Any thoughts about Coach
Mass? He was always helpful and always give you teaching points. And I think the biggest moment that Coach Mass, that I think of was when in the championship game. And he didn't, we're in the championship game, there's a lot of pressure. He looks at Coach and tells him, fix his little pocket. After that's the best memory, because everybody is nervous, everybody's ready, anxious for this game. And you just see him point at Coach. It's like, you got to coach this team, but hold on, fix this first. So that's probably the best moment.
Phil, do you have a memory?
I don't have any specific moments, but I could say just his presence was always felt when he came in the gym or in the room. He loved to be around the game of basketball. I always noticed that. Just every time he came to watch us practice and we say hi to him, had the biggest smile on his face, give you a couple pointers here and there. He just always just loved to be around the game, but I don't have any big moments from him.
Jalen.
I was going to say the same thing Mikkel said. It was pretty cool to see how calm he was in such a could be a very nervous and nerve-wracking situation for many, but it was just, like Phil said, his presence was always felt when he was around, always put a smile on everyone's faces, and he was just one of those guys that was really wise about everything he said, and it was just really fun to be around him.
Coach.
Good to have Casey, good Villanova girl in the house. It's funny. These guys got to see him, towards the end of his life as this fun, jovial, loving guy. And I would always say, he'd always come in and joke with them at practice and always positive with them. And I'd always say, man, you didn't play for him. He was always not that sweet when you played for him. But I love the fact that that's the way these guys know him. Towards the end of his career and end of his life, he was just a lovable guy, and that's how these guys know him. And I miss him. It's not the same being in this tournament without him. He loved the big stage, man, and he was good at it. And when we would be here, he would take a lot of pressure off of all of us because Villanova people just wanted to be around him. It was magical, and it took a lot of attention away from us in a good way. And I miss that, but I also miss just seeing the pride in his eyes of watching these guys and watching his program.
On the right side toward the center of the room.
Coach Harold Bouchard with the Topeka Capital Journal. Mikel's involvement as a player, I know 2 years ago he had a big game, came off the bench against KU, 26 minutes, 5 steals. How important is that kind of defense that he plays for you guys, and also just his involvement as a player in these last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, that was really probably his best game that year in terms of the impact he had on the game was that KU game. I mean, he had a lot of games where he scored more, but he was really impactful in that game. And it was because of KU's length and size. We needed him. And he always has had a willingness to do whatever it takes for his team. We played a game this year in the Bahamas against Tennessee. We were down 14 at halftime, and unbeknownst to me, he got the team together after I talked to them at halftime and said, hey, you guys, Jalen, Phil, you guys go out, you get buckets. I got this. I got the rebounds. I got the defense. I got this. So that's what he's done his whole career, and he's developed into a complete player. That some Alabama game, we needed him to score in the second half. He scored. Just whatever the team needs, he's really unselfish that way, but talented enough to do anything.
We have time for one more quick question.
David Lawrence, Jayhawk Radio. Could the players talk about the Kansas guards? And then, Coach, could you make a comment about the matchup of bigs? We've heard so much about the guard matchup.
Let's start with Mikel.
They're all talented around, you know. All of them can shoot, you know. They can do everything, you know. Move out the ball, come off ball screens. You know, they play so well together. And just a real talented force.
Phil.
They're about just as complete force of the guards as you'll see, with all unselfish, all can dribble, pass, and shoot, like Mikel said. Play real well with one another, and they always look for the best shot. Could be very tough matchups for us, and they just don't really force anything, just making everything easier on each other.
We're going to pause and let the satellite time get out clean. And Jalen, same question.
Just to go off what they said, I mean, they're really complete as players. They can all shoot. They can all create shots for themselves, create shots for each other. I mean, they're just so well-rounded. They can do a lot on both sides of the floor, and we just got to give them credit, and they've been doing it all year.
And a final thought from Coach.
Yeah, the bigs are going to be interesting in this game because Azubuike and DeSosa are beneficiaries a lot of the spacing that those guys create. They're so athletic that you know, they get to the rim, they throw it up there to those guys, and they are long enough and athletic enough to finish. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. They're great rim protectors. You worry so much about their perimeter play, but it opens those guys up. If they weren't so athletic and good with their hands, you wouldn't have to worry about them rolling to the rim so much. So they're a bigger part of this team, I think, than people talk about. And, you know, Cosby Roundtree, Omari Spellman, and Eric Pascal, we've got to keep those guys off the glass, and we've got to be able to guard them because they can go into those guys one-on-one with those perimeter shooters around them, and they're very difficult to guard.
We'd like to thank Coach Wright, Jalen, Phil, and Mikel for joining us here in the main interview room. Fellas, good luck tomorrow night. We'll see you right back here.
Thank you.
Waterproof tablecloth, right? All right, no more press conferences until